The Babes in the Wood murders is a name which has been used to refer to a child murder case in which the bodies of two brothers, Derek and David Dalton, were found concealed in woodland in Stanley Park, which is located in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. The remains of two male victims were discovered on Wednesday, January 14, 1953. Police determined that a hatchet found at the crime scene had been used to kill the boys by striking them in the head. Their corpses had been arranged so that they were lying down in a straight line, with each boy's soles facing the others, and then concealed with a woman's rain cape. A DNA test conducted in 1998 proved that both victims were male and that they were brothers. They were between the ages of 6 and 10 when they died. The investigation came to a close in 2022 when the children were identified via forensic genealogy. Derek and David were the sons of Eileen Bosquet, who died in 1996. Police said they believed the person who killed the brothers was likely a close relative who died approximately in the late 1990s. Dudley Wolfe was an American socialite. As a racing yacht owner and captain, he was the first person to race a 60-foot yacht across the Atlantic. In early 1938, Wolfe and his wife held a party in their Fifth Avenue apartment in Manhattan. Fritz Wissner, the famous German-American mountain climber, had been invited. He was on the lookout for wealthy mountaineers who might be willing to join in and pay for an expedition he was organizing to attempt to climb the second highest mountain in the world, K2. Wolfe was immediately hooked, despite his inexperience in climbing high mountains. In March 1939, Wolfe met Wissner in England, where they bought climbing equipment. They joined their team on March 29, 1939, to sail to Bombay. On the march to the K2 base camp, Wolfe coped as well as anyone else and started off strongly when it came to climbing the mountain. However, above Camp 2, he was noticeably slow and was criticized for that by some of his colleagues. Wolfe merely plodded up to each camp. By Camp 8, at 25,300 feet on July 14th, Wolfe could go no higher. He waited there for 7 days while Wissner made his failed summit bid. Then, descending with the others to Camp 7, Wolfe waited another 7 days under appalling conditions while his two companions went down further to get help. As they reached each camp, they found nobody there, and any equipment had been removed, so they went on down until they arrived at base camp. On July 29th, during one of 3 attempts at rescue, 3 Sherpas managed to climb up to Wolfe and might conceivably have rescued him. However, he was in a terrible mental state and refused to go down, asking them to return the next day. After that, the Sherpas themselves also died on the mountain. In the months and years following, there were strong suspicions whether Wissner had abandoned Wolfe or had done his best to rescue him. Questions remained. Why was the expedition an organizational failure? Why was Wolfe allowed to climb so high? Why had he been allowed on the expedition at all? In 2002, skeletal remains were found on the Godwin-Austen Glacier at the foot of K2. Close by were vintage pieces of mountaineering equipment and a leather mitten marked Wolfe. By inscribing an ancient dinner plate from amongst the debris with Wolfe's name, a plaque was made for the nearby Gilkey Memorial, which at that time had the names of 52 other climbers who had died on K2. Lucy Ann Johnson is an American-Canadian woman who was reported missing in May 1965. She's an Alaska native who, prior to her disappearance, lived in Surrey, British Columbia with her husband Marvin and their 2 children. She was seen by a neighbor in September 1961. She was finally reported missing by her husband on May 14, 1965. The husband admitted she had actually gone missing years earlier. The police believe that foul play was involved in her disappearance. Her husband was suspected of her murder. Marvin was interrogated, neighbors were questioned, and the family's yard was excavated, but no evidence was ever found. The trail went cold. Marvin later remarried and died in the 1990s of natural causes. In the years following Johnson's disappearance, investigators continued to do DNA tests on unidentified remains, but they never found any matches. In June 2013, almost 52 years after Johnson went missing, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police highlighted her disappearance as a cold case in their Missing of the Month series. Following that, Johnson's daughter decided to do an investigation of her own. She was able to find old documents indicating that Johnson had lived in the community of Carcross, Yukon, before moving to British Columbia. In July, the daughter placed a plea for help in the Yukon News. She received a reply from a woman named Rhonda, who claimed that Johnson was her mother. Johnson, who was then 77 years old, was discovered alive and well in Yukon. She had remarried and had 4 more children. Johnson said she had disappeared because her late husband Marvin was abusive. She tried to take her children with her, but he would not allow it.